buttermilk crispy chicken? Let's find out.
It's probably the best sandwich I've ever had.
It's super crispy, but it's also really juicy.
So would you guys come back? Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, here's our card. The location is on the back. It's McDonald's? What? What?
Oh, get out
No way.
Wait, seriously?
Try some buttermilk crispy chicken. It's right around the corner at McDonald's. Buttermilk.
Well, you're with WCOU Sports with Brad Atwell and Ask the Coach with Coach Jeff Griffith of Barren County High School. 2-0.
Well, it's good to wake up and be 2-0 and played a tough football game last night and came out on the positive side of it.
Yeah, you know, we talked last week about what kind of game that was going to be, and it was going to be kind of one of those smash mouth games, and that's what we saw.
It was, and we knew that going in, and we prepared for that all week. Anytime you play a Dudley Hilton coach team, you know, that's the kind of game you're going to be, and if you're not prepared for it, not only physically but mentally, it's going to be a long night. I thought our kids did a good job in preparation all week, and we got the victory last night.
You know, of course, most of the time when you come to a show, you want to talk about offense, but I tell you, I want to talk about our defense last night.
Well, again, it goes back to you got to be physical with them, and you know, you got to be the attackers, because if you're catching them and their style of offense, it's going to be a long night for you. And I thought our kids took our game plan to the game that we had worked on all week and did a great job with it.
Yeah, I know. Just being there at the game and the atmosphere, you know, the defense just played at such a high level of intensity last night. I thought Jordan Hill there on the defensive line, I think he just had a lights out game last night.
He really did, and Jordan's one of those guys that plays with a big motor, and he's always around the football and running, and he's high intensity. And you know, sometimes I've got to calm him down a little bit because he does play with such a high level of intensity. But, you know, that's the way the game's supposed to be played. You got to keep that under control a little bit. But, you know, he's one of our bell cows up front, and, man, he was flying around there. We did a great job last night.
Yeah, you know, just going back and looking over, I think he had, you know, quite a few tackles there, and playing on the defensive line and making tackles. That's a good thing, because you're either hitting them at the line of scrimmage or you're behind the line of scrimmage.
Exactly. And you know, and Jordan plays, you know, he's not a real big guy for a D lineman. He probably weighs about 205, 210, somewhere in there if he's eating well that week. But he's a really physical guy, and he's not afraid to put to play physical and put his body on people, and he did that last night. Of course, we had I was extremely proud of you know, Brody Bricker did a great job banging in there, because they had some big guys and big running backs. And of course, we started Ellis on our defensive line, and we just decided, well, we'll see how, you know, Chris Aguero went in as a sophomore.
Absolutely.
And you know, we were a little concerned because Chris is really undersized and he's a sophomore. You can play undersized D line guys, but sometimes when they're young like that. But Chris really held the fort down and played most of the game after about halfway through the first quarter, and did a great job for us.
Yeah, speaking of Chris Aguero, I know they're late in the game, and Taylor was had a drive put together, and he made a big time sack there with about 3rd and 7, about a 7-yard loss that caused them to have to punt the football. And you know, just his size, just how quick he is and how physical he is almost amazing.
Well, you know, and that's what I've talked with Chris about, and he's been making progress each week since we started actual practice in the middle of July. And I'm like, you know, Chris is not the biggest guy in the world, but I've told him, you've got to use what you have, and that's quickness and some speed, and he did a great job with that last night. And as you said, that was a big play on the sack last night. He did a great job of keeping the quarterback inside and getting him down on the sack. And of course, it made it, it made them have to punt the football, and we got it back after they had a little drive going.
Yeah, I know. Again, we talked last week, special teams. I thought our special teams did really well last night. You know, just the one roll got us there. They got a unsportsmanlike conduct, Taylor did, and we got a great spot to kick the football off to them, and it just took that bounce and went right out of bounds. And I was like, oh my goodness, here, you know, thought they were going to be starting, probably inside the 5, and they ended up getting the ball out at the 25.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. We have done a good job the first 2 weeks in our special teams, and done a good job kicking the football, which it was a big concern, coming into the season. But Andrew's done a good job with it. He's done a good job punting the football and kicking off, and apparently it just went inside the pylon there for it. So the fortunate thing for us there was that because of the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, when you move the ball up to the 45 there on that, instead of coming out to the 35, the ball comes to the 25. So that's where they ended up getting it. So it didn't hurt us too bad, but it would have been nice to have them pinned down there inside the 5.
Yeah, and on that, we got some good field position last night a couple times. I know on that first drive, we had decent field position. Just over on our side of the 50, drove the ball down inside the 5-yard line, and then had a big holding call that backed us up. I think we were like second and goal at about the 5-yard line, or maybe the 4, and backed us up. And boy, that really hurt our momentum getting in the end zone on that first drive.
It did, and anytime you play in a game that's kind of be back and forth and both teams run the football, there's two things that are critical in doing that, of course, and that's field position. And we had field position the entire first half, and I felt like we didn't get as much out of it as maybe we should have. It was 6-0 at halftime, and probably should have been 14-0, maybe even 21 if we can take care of business. But I think it also hurt them because defensively we were able to keep them bottled up on their end of the field most of the time behind the 25-yard line. So when you're playing in a game like that, and it's both teams are smash mouthing and every yard is critical, field position plays a big role in that, and certainly penalties in that aspect as well. We got a terrible holding call, and that's 2 weeks in a row that we've got a holding call down inside the 5 that's knocked us out of a scoring opportunity.
Yeah, and going back and of course I'm pretty I love football, so I've already been up watching film this morning, and there was 2 or 3 things I wanted to see. That was one of them, and the other one was the touchdown that we got. And I tell you, watching film, it looks like we had to score that one 3 times to get that.
I tell you, I really thought we scored it on 3rd down. I thought that Zach Sneed was laying across the goal line, but they didn't give it to us, and we gave it back to Zach again, and he went over the top, and didn't like his ball security there because you leave it in the hands of the official to make a decision on whether or not that was a fumble or not. But on film it was pretty plain that he had crossed the goal line before he actually fumbled it. But we got to take care of the football and do a better job with that.
Yeah. Well, Coach, we're going to take a short break here, and folks, you join us back right after these messages.
What are people going to think of our new buttermilk crispy chicken? Let's find out.
It's probably the best sandwich I've ever had.
It's super crispy, but it's also really juicy.
So would you guys come back? Yeah, definitely. Well, here's our card. The location is on the back. It's McDonald's. What?
What? Oh, get out of here.
No way.
Wait, seriously?
Try some buttermilk crispy chicken. It's right around the corner at McDonald's.
Buttermilk.